And we're live. Welcome to NFL, where the NFL starts and ends. The Damar Hamlin update is this. I wish it was more positive news, but it seems like this is all we're going to get at the moment. Hamlin on Tuesday afternoon received some great news as his uncle said in Tuesday evening to CNN and eventually to the NFL Network that when Hamlin got in, he had been resuscitated at the hospital as well as at the field. So he was resuscitated twice. Okay, that's how, how many times he was put on a ventilator where he was getting 100% oxygen. On Tuesday evening, he was only getting 50% oxygen. Now, this doesn't mean the machine was going crazy. This means that in fact he was breathing a little better, and therefore they didn't need the oxygen levels as high as they were, which is great news. A lot of players and coaches have had great words to say about Damar Hamlin. Coach Tomlin said this hits him on a different level as he's known Hamlin since he was like 12 years old. So that's a whole different situation and a whole different level of what all these players are feeling. In fact, one of the players said, "We are not stars, we're not heroes. We are people playing a game for entertainment purposes. We love it, yes, but we're playing to entertain other people. And sometimes that line does get crossed." The According to the NFL, the Bills and Bengals game will not resume this week. There is no indication when the game will be played, if the game will be played at all. And there is a rule, it's not used often. In fact, it hasn't been used at all. That states if Goodell, it makes essentially Goodell godlike in the NFL, where he can go and say, okay, we either can start the game right where the injury took place, or we could start the game in the fourth quarter and we'll put 10 minutes on the clock, and then whoever wins, wins. They could do that. They could also go and say, we're not going to play this game. We won't count it as a forfeit. We won't count it as a tie. We'll just won't count it at all. Right now, and this is big for the Bills because they could say the Chiefs could get the number 1 seed. They could say the Bills can get the number 1 seed right now. They could. And I think this is what will happen. They won't have them play the game, and they'll go off week 17 outlook. And they'll say if the Bills beat the Patriots, which is a big game for the Patriots, if the Bills beat the Patriots, they get the number 1 seed. That's it. Because it wasn't fair to the Bills that, yes, their teammate goes down with an injury and we don't know if he's going to live or not, but it's not fair to them. They didn't get to play out what they was trying to do. So you can't just give it to the Chiefs, even though the media probably wants them to, because the Chiefs are very exciting in comparison to the Bills that are making the media sad at this moment, which I understand. But I think if I'm the Bills, you may forfeit the week, or you may go and say, no, we want the bye week still. So the NFL might go and say, okay, week 18, Bills win, they get it. If they lose, the Chiefs get it. That might happen. So we may have the Bills get the home bye with a worse record than the Chiefs. That could definitely happen. Uh, they would talk. The NFL was talking, or a cardiologist, I should say, was talking about the rarity of Damar Hamlin's injury, and he said that's like a 1 in 264 million chance that that happens. And that's shocking, to say the least, because how many games have we played in the NFL in the history? M Maybe over 10,000? More than that, possibly? And so, if you've played more than 10,000, we see it. We understand that. The rarity, this hasn't even happened, and I understand people got mad at the NFL for not making this decision quicker. The NFL had no rules to this. They didn't know what to do. So, you're trying to figure this out on the fly. You wanna see if the players want to play, which obviously they didn't. The coaches stood by their players, which massive applause to them to be able to do that. They go say, "Nope, we're not playing." And you don't see that a whole lot. Then they were on the phone with, we would presume, either a higher up or Roger Goodell, say, "Okay, they don't wanna play. The Bengals don't wanna play. Let's just not have them play. Let's just postpone the game. Maybe we'll come back to it another time, maybe we won't." But I think the indication, once we saw some Bills players already showered, I think that was the indication. They're not playing. They're not playing the rest of this game. No. They're done. They don't wanna do it, which is understandable. That's 1,000% understandable. The I think ESPN did it the best way they could. Joe Buck, Troy Aikman, Lisa Salters, Susie Colbert, Booger McFarland, Adam Schefter, who I am critical of Schefter, but I think he did it the right way. I think ESPN, and even to Scott Van Pelt and Ryan Clark, they did it all the right way. Of We took a terrible situation and just tried our best to make it so we're not, um, so we're careful with the way we are talking about it. It was according to one report, it was the highest rated ESPN broadcast because players and people alike could not turn their head away from it. In fact, Jeff Saturday and the Colts said it was the scariest thing he's ever seen. Jeff Saturday's played in the NFL. He played 12 years. That's the scariest thing he's ever seen. So that tells you the rarity of this. Mike McCarthy of the Dallas Cowboys said that he had his spiritual books open and trying to console his players that, yes, this is a dangerous time, but we gotta just try and get spiritually back into place of where we should be. The Patriots, in fact, said that we are not doing press today. The Patriots are kings. They do press almost every day. They're the most one of the teams that does press every day. They decided to not do it today. They'll do it tomorrow. That's what they said. They said, "We're not doing it." The effect that this is having on players and coaches alike and organizations, never mind what the effect of having people that are dealing with. This has gone beyond sports. This has gone into life. It's on every news channel. At every couple hours, we're getting a news bulletin or a news update about his condition. It's really taken over the league and the world about this kid from Pennsylvania who played at Pitt, who was drafted in the 2021 draft, in the 2020 draft. And this is a whole, yeah, 2021 draft. This is a whole situation that I really think the NFL is doing the best they can to deal with it. That the world is doing the best they can to deal with it. There is players that went to the hospital where Damar Hamlin is. There were fans of Bills and Bengals and other teams showing up to the hospital in, like, almost a memorial kinda way. They have signs, they have candles, and, they were there all last night. Signs, candles, cards, flowers, anything and everything that they could think of, they had there. That's what this league is, as much as it is, I don't like that team," or "I don't like that player." You don't want the player to get hurt. You don't want the player to almost lose his life. That's unwarranted, and if you do feel that way, that's not what the NFL is about. The NFL is about this team against this team, but after all that, the players can go home and see their families. They have friends inside other organizations. So when you see an injury like that, it hurts you to your core because you don't know about this kid who's just starting his life, living out his dream to be in the NFL. And you're just hoping now, like, forget about his NFL career, forget about the money. Can he live and can he walk and live a good life after this? That's the big question. I'm gonna try and transition a little bit. A lot of players, including Tom Brady, Matt Stafford, and Russell Wilson, have donated to Hamlin's charity. Brady and Wilson have donated $10,000. Stafford donated $12,000. Even Chris Jericho, a pro wrestler, donated about $5,000 he to Hamlin's charity. The amount of people who've been donating, it's almost hit 6,000,000 people, $6,000,000 that were originally there was only about $2,300 before the incident. Now there's almost 6,000,000. The amount of support, it's really heartwarming in a way. I'm gonna try to transition back to football here. The Washington Commanders are making another quarterback switch as Taylor Heineke will start versus the Cowboys. I think the Commanders are trying to figure something out. They don't know what it is. They think it's gonna be Wentz, and then they go and Wentz gets hurt, and then it's Heineke, and then they say, "No, this doesn't work. Let's put back in Wentz. Let's start Wentz. That doesn't work. Let's put Heineke back in." It's really, really interesting. It really is. And we'll talk about scenarios in the NFC in a minute, but that's just what it means. Like, Washington's out, so there's no reason for them to even play Wentz anyway. But it's a question of what's gonna happen. Um, the Cowboys decided to cut James Washington, and everyone's like, "Oh my gosh, this is a shocker, big name player." He's played 2 games, and he hasn't played a whole lot in those 2 games. The fact that I think the word play has been not extradited, but has been expanded a little bit in this. Because his first game was against the Houston Texans. I believe he played like 3 snaps in that game. Okay, trying to get him warmed up. Jacksonville, I think it was 4 snaps. That was it. That's all he played. And they were mostly on special teams. And then he was deactivated for the Eagles contest and deactivated for the Titans contest. So when people go and say, more snaps for T.Y. Hilton, more snaps for Michael Gallup, more snaps for so and so. No. It's just, I mean, he hasn't played at all. And it's not like his contract was the issue. He was making about league minimum. So a little over league minimum. So it's not that. It was just he wasn't playing. And you find yourself in a position if you're the Cowboys of, we need somebody who can play meaningful snaps, and we don't know if he's the guy, and so therefore we are getting rid of him and hoping that a guy we do bring back or do sign can help us. The the playoff scenarios, I should say, for Green Bay, Detroit, and Seattle. I should have added Dallas into this because that's where I'm going to leave with this. Green Bay needs to beat Detroit. That's all. They just need to beat Detroit. Detroit needs to win against Green Bay, and Seattle needs to lose against the Rams. Seattle would, in order for Seattle to get the 7th seed, have to beat the Rams, and Detroit would have to lose. So, in any scenario, that's what would have to happen. Now, the reason why I said the Cowboys should be on this is there's a scenario right now where the Eagles, who entered the last 2 weeks and they had 1 loss, have now had 2 losses in a row, could be the 5th seed by the end of the week. If Dallas beats Washington and the Eagles lose to the Giants, that makes the Eagles 7th or 5th seed, and it would move the Cowboys to 2nd seed. If the Niners beat the Cardinals, the Niners would become the 1 seed. The Cowboys would become 2 if the Eagles lost and the Cowboys won against Washington. So it would go San Francisco, Dallas, Minnesota, Tampa, Philly, Giants, and then whatever happened between Detroit, Green Bay, and Seattle. Then that would be how it would go. However, if the Eagles win, they're the number 1 seed, Cowboys are number 5, San Francisco stays at 2, Minnesota stays at 3, Tampa's at 4, and that is how it's going to go. But there's also a scenario that could happen where if Philadelphia loses, the Cowboys win, and San Francisco loses the Cardinals, I doubt that happens. The Cowboys could be the 1 seed. That's more unlikely than anything because the Cardinals aren't very good. But that could, in fact, happen. Black Monday, it's not a racial thing. It's a thing in the NFL where coaches get fired. And there's rumors that Sean Payton could, in fact, go back into coaching this year. The trade value that the Saints want are multiple firsts and multiple seconds. That seems unlikely. That seems unlikely because multiple firsts the Cowboys wouldn't do. Even if they might as well just have it, if they were to get rid of McCarthy, they wouldn't do it. They wouldn't go for Peyton. They'd probably stick with someone that they already had. Maybe it would be McCarthy. Who knows? Washington, I don't see why they would do it. The Broncos don't have the draft selections, and the Colts, they don't really have the draft selections either. So either that value is going to go lower, or that, or he's not going to be picked up. He's not going to get traded for. What could also happen? If you want my expert opinion, though, don't be surprised if there's more offensive coaches in this hiring cycle. Don't be surprised. Because in the hiring cycle this year, you have right now you have 3 teams. The Broncos, their offense is a mess. Their defense was really good, so you don't need it. The Colts, their offense was miserable. Their defense was actually not that bad. And the Panthers, which I think Steve Wilkes is getting that job. So that's 3. There could be more on Monday, and we'll break that down when they transpire. But until then, there's only 3, and it looks like they're all going to be offensive coaching jobs. Moving to our game recap and preview of Week 18, the final week of the regular season. The Cowboys beat the Titans 27-13 in a game that neither team looked really good. If you're the Cowboys, if you didn't win by more than 30, you were going to get ridiculed. Why didn't you win more than 30? But if you lost, if the Cowboys lost, they would have said, "Why? How couldn't you beat the Titans?" So it's kind of like that all the time. A predictable game, I think, 27 points and against 27-13 because the Titans are a really tough team on defense, and they'll fight tooth and nail the whole way there, and that's what they bring from Mike Vrabel's team. The Bucks beat the Panthers 30-24 in a game that the Panthers allowed both Mike Evans and Chris Godwin to get over 100 yards. That can happen, especially if you're a team that's trying to get to the playoffs. If you're the Panthers, now you're out. You had a chance if you would have won. You would have been the team. That's just how. If you play like that, you won't win. Sorry, it wasn't Sam Darnold's fault. Yes, he had one turnover, but in a fumble, but he did enough for you to win on offense. Your defense didn't do enough. That's the problem. The Patriots beat the Dolphins 23-21 in a game that Teddy Bridgewater actually dislocated his finger. He did not break it. So the question is, if does he play against the Jets? We don't know because we will only know when the swelling goes down. That's when we'll know. The Patriots didn't play well. Just the Dolphins didn't play great after Teddy Bridgewater got hurt. Lions beat the Bears 41-10 in a game that the Lions, if you want to make the playoffs, you have to play this way again against the Packers. You can't play the way you did against the Panthers. The way you played the Panthers was not good. That was unwarranted, definitely. The Packers beat the Vikings 41-17. The Vikings, I don't even know what to think of them at this point. They are disaster on defense. And on top of all that, the games you think that they could win, and it doesn't seem to be that shocking, they lose. And they lose by a lot. Their first game against the Eagles, they didn't play great. The game against the Cowboys, they played atrocious on defense. And on offense as well. It was a team loss. This one, you could just see the frustration. Justin Jefferson was shoving people, throwing his helmet, hitting an official in the back with his helmet. Like, it was just ridiculous. It was they completely lost it. Like, they were out of it. And the Packers beat them. And they beat them by a lot. Next up, the Bills and Bengals. That game was obviously postponed. Moving into a preview for Week 18. Chiefs versus Raiders. Raiders getting plus 9.5. Taking the Chiefs. Raiders will cover, but Chiefs win. The Chiefs win 31-28. Next up, Browns versus Steelers. Steelers are favored by 3. Taking the Steelers. I think Tomlin will drag this team to a win. Tomlin is going to find a way not to have a losing season. With this bad roster, at one point, I believe they were 3-7. They've won 5 of their last 6. That's how good they've been. It's not that they've been playing well, but Tomlin's going to drag them. And if he has to drag them across coals, he will do it. Steelers win 21-17. Patriots versus Bills. The heavy-hearted Bills. are favored by 7.5. The Bills win this game. And I don't know how the score is going to end up, but I think it's 31-21. Next up, Jets versus Dolphins. The Dolphins need this to make the playoffs. The Patriots beat the Bills, they're in. If the Dolphins beat if the Bills lose, then the Dolphins win, they make it. Or even the Steelers have a chance at this point. But I'm taking the Dolphins to win. Scores 21-14. Next up, Cardinals versus 49ers. 49ers are favored by 14 points. The Cowboys need the Cardinals to win to have a chance at the 1 seed. So I'm saying the 49ers will win, Cardinals cover. 49ers win 31-24. Next up, Cowboys versus Commanders. Commanders are being plus 6.5. Depending on how this game looks, don't be surprised if the Cowboys start pulling players like Michael Parsons, Dak Prescott, Ezekiel Elliott. Don't be surprised. Cowboys win 31-10. Next up, Giants versus Eagles. The Cowboys need the Giants to win this. Depending how Jalen Hurts is and if he plays, the Eagles are favored by 14. No Lane Johnson for the second straight week. I'm taking the Giants to win 24-21. Next up, finally, Lions versus Packers. Packers are favored by 4. The Lions will win this game. Why? It's a divisional game, and they're going to play their tail off. Lions win 24-14.